What's going on out here?
Call the police. Tell the sheriff I shot him.
Who?
Tell him he's still on the loose.
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
What's going on, YouTubers? Thank you so much for joining today as we conclude the 2018 Classic Horror Movie Review Marathon. Each week throughout the entire month of October, we have gone back and looked at a classic horror film. And I decided, since we've done the 1978 John Carpenter masterpiece, the original Halloween, my favorite movie, we looked at the 2018 Halloween sequel. This is the year of Michael Myers. Let's finish it off with the 1981 Halloween 2. This is a direct sequel to the 1978 film. It is directed by Rick Rosenthal. John Carpenter said, "I'm out. I don't want to be involved with this." His original intent, I agree with him, was there was going to be one movie, and that's it. I think that would have been the right choice. However, you got rabid fans like myself. We want to see more. So I understand when they said, well, we have such a high demand, we need to make a sequel. Again, never Carpenter's original intent, but he stated, if you guys are going to do this, I might as well get involved on some level so you don't completely ruin it. So he is back in the role of producer and writer along with Deborah Hill. Also returning is Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasance in their roles of Laurie Strode and Dr. Sam Loomis. And you briefly have Charles Cyphers returning in his role of Sheriff Lee Brackett. Now, as great as it is to have Jamie Lee Curtis back as Laurie Strode in this film, I don't feel like she's ever given the opportunity to really do much. She's either doped up in the hospital or she's just running away from Michael. And that's pretty much all she gets to do throughout this movie. They never really give her time to shine like she had in the first film. Donald Pleasance, on the other hand, I think he owns every single scene he's in. For me, he's the best thing about this movie. And really, for the entire Halloween franchise, he always seems to stand out in his roles. And I can't help but laugh and think, when they're riding around town looking for Michael at the beginning of this film, does it not look like Loomis is riding around trying to find that person that owes him money? You know, he's just kind of cruising around, riding shotgun, loading that revolver. Where my money at?
Will you put that thing away?
Now, while I do feel like this film does the best job of all the sequels as far as being able to capture the original feeling of the 1978 film, it certainly does not live up to that original film. And part of the problem, I think, with this is they decide to go in the direction of more gore, more graphic, more shock value. I understand they have a bigger budget and they're able to do things. I mean, you see that at the beginning of the film with the big explosion, the car crashing into Ben Tramer. But I just feel like they rely so much on the shock factor rather than the original Carpenter formula of the build-up, the anticipation, the suspense and tension. You don't really get a lot in this film. And so much of it, it feels like it's just recycled material from the first one. Okay, we've seen Laurie run from Michael. We've seen this before. I mean, you get some great moments. But ultimately, you're just not as invested in the characters like you were in the first movie. It's kind of like a waiting around, okay, who's Michael gonna get next? And he just, he's picking everybody off one by one. And it doesn't really add much other than, oh, we're gonna get to see a kill. And if that's what you like, then fine. But for me, it's not about that. Now, perfect example of what I'm talking about is the hot tub death scene of Pamela Susan Shoop. That is probably, for me, the most brutal scene in that movie. It's not really scary, it's just brutal. It's a shock value. And while audiences today, if they were to watch that, they're not going to be as shocked as they would have been in 1981, because, I mean, all the stuff we've seen since then, it's really no big deal. But at the time, I mean, that is a brutal scene to watch.
Now, Bud, don't be that way.
One of the other problems with this film, as much as I love him, I think he's awesome, Mr. Dick Warlock, he played Michael Myers. Let's be honest, he's no Nick Castle. He fails in the movements. He does have some good parts. There are some good scenes where I feel like he does capture that original Michael Myers formula, but overall, he moves too damn slow. There's the old saying that no matter how fast you run, Michael Myers walks faster. That ain't the case in this movie. I mean, there are some shots where it's just like, damn, dude, you are moving like a snail. Nick Castle never did that. I mean, Michael, he didn't run, but he was very smooth in his walking, and it feels like the Dick Warlock portrayal, he's almost like a robot in some of these shots. And I don't necessarily blame him. I mean, that could have been the direction. That could have been what the powers that be wanted him to do. I don't really know. I just don't think it's executed well. And having said that, they show way too much of Michael in this film. The original, you know, he was in the shadows. You could barely see him. And it made it so creepy because you never got a good look at him. And this one, they've got him out in the open throughout most of his scenes in the film. And I think that takes away from the scariness and the tension because it's like, okay, well, there he is. And it doesn't quite have the same effect. But having said all this, Michael manages to have some great and memorable kills, and he does have some good movements at times. I just feel like they went in the wrong direction with him overall. And while this film certainly fails to live up to the original Halloween, and let's be honest, that is a monumental, if not impossible task. I just don't think that's ever going to happen. John Carpenter set the bar so high, it just can't be topped. I do feel like this is probably the best sequel in the Halloween franchise. Certainly better sequel than all these other slasher films like Friday the 13th Part 2, or The Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, any of that. Halloween 2 definitely takes the cake in that regard of sequels. There are some good moments. You get characters back that you actually like. There's some memorable death scenes. It's not a bad movie. It can stand on its own. I will rate this a 7.5 out of 10. And some of you may beat me for saying this. Some of you may agree. I think if I really have to make a decision, I probably like Halloween 2 better than the 2018 Halloween film. My opinion. I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch them both again before I fully commit to that decision. But right now, I think I'm going with Halloween Part 2.
It's time, Michael.
Well, that's going to do it, guys. I want to thank you so much for joining in. Hopefully you have enjoyed these reviews. If you have not subscribed, please do so. Give this video a like. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments below. Let's engage in some great discussion. We'll keep doing reviews for you. We'll see you soon. I thank you for everything. Happy Halloween 2018.